Hello, and thank you for joining us for today's virtual education program at Cancer Support Community South Bay. I'm Rebecca, the program manager, and I welcome you to this workshop titled Thrivership Community Workshop. Before we begin, if this is your first time joining us, Cancer Support Community South Bay's mission is to uplift and strengthen people impacted by cancer by providing support, fostering compassionate communities, and breaking down barriers to care. Our vision is that everyone impacted by cancer receives the support we want and need throughout their experience. We serve the South Bay, Long Beach, and Orange County area, all at no cost. Our program includes support groups, networking groups, healthy lifestyle classes, social activities, and educational programs like this workshop. Educational programs are open to all. If you'd like to hear more about our services or join the community, please visit our website at cscsouthbay.org. Before I introduce today's speaker, we ask you to keep your microphone muted to eliminate any distracting background noise. Please feel free to enter any questions or comments into the chat function found at the bottom of the Zoom window at any time. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our workshop speaker. Ghazal Hassanzadeh is a 3-time survivor of cancer, autoimmunity, and neurodivergence to Thriver. She's transformed her journey through chronic illness into purposeful healing path. As a somatic transformation facilitator and well-being coach, she supports others through life's deepest transitions with conscious presence, embodied healing, and compassionate care. Born from her own personal experiences, she created Thrivership, a movement and methodology that helps people turn their pain into power and power into purpose. Today, Ghazal lives a healthy, vibrant life beyond what doctors once believed possible, alongside her devoted husband, her cockapoo companion, and her miracle baby. Thank you so much, Ghazal, for being here with us today for part 2.
Thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Hi, everyone. Welcome. I see some familiar names, so thank you for joining again. And this is part 2 of Thrivership workshop. So we'll be diving in deeper into what Thrivership is about and how we can embody Thrivership into our day-to-day lives. Into the lifestyle that we envision for ourselves to thrive in life. So let's get started. So today we're going to focus on the body-mind. So we last time focused on the mind-body connection. Really, we're just transitioning the focus into more of the soma, which if anyone had joined the somatics yogas, it's really about connecting with the body and how the body speaks through a specific language that's sometimes pretty different than the mind's language. So today we're really diving into how we can own that as a self-advocacy journey as well throughout this journey of cancer and beyond into our lives. So last time, again, we did go into a more deeper sense of self-resourcing, so just putting a more focus on self-advocacy for this round. So just for anyone that's new and doesn't know me, I am beyond the introduction that was so kind for Rebecca for presenting. I am also the founder of Contagiously Healing Body, Mind, Self. I am on a mission to make healing contagious. So growing up, I had this thought process that my cancer was contagious, and now I've turned that into more of a healing journey so that I can help transform people's well-being into a more powerful story and be able to take on a holistic health advocacy role. So I also do on the side trauma-informed somatics arts facilitation, yoga, breathwork instruction, and NLP practitioner, which stands for neuro-linguistic programming, to be able to rewrite the story that our minds have created through the subjective world. Anyways, so just some housekeeping before we get started. I just want to make sure that we all come into this being extra curious about what we can discover, not only about this space and what this workshop is about, but also ourselves, staying curious internally, releasing any type of judgment, again, towards self or others, holding a safe space of compassion, And of course, the respect of confidentiality. So anything that someone shares, just staying in this space would be wonderful. All right, so a little bit about Thrivership. So it was very much inspired through my survivorship journey. Personally, I lived with this narrative that I'm constantly surviving and trying to catch a breath to live a purposeful life. And I found myself constantly in the same narrative, kind of looking forward to the next disease, the next diagnosis, the next label that I was getting out in the medical field. And I almost got to a place where I found myself becoming more so addicted, in a sense, where I wanted to hone this identity of just being that sick girl. So Thrivership is really taking another turn for a perspective and wisdom of choice that we can change that narrative if we really do take ownership of what's happening internal. So a lot of this process is an internal development base. It does take a lot of courage to want to take the next step and have strength to survive, but it takes a lot of compassion to thrive. So going into that, we're going to talk a little bit about what really comes into play when we talk about survivorship. I feel like for me personally, and this is something that I've gotten a pull from many other survivors, is there's this sense of loneliness, stuckness, and loss. And a lot of sense comes from these labels or identity. For example, this is my little puzzle piece. And if for those who didn't get the email, let us know. We sent a worksheet that you can create your own puzzle pieces of what specific words or specific identity labels have you been experiencing in your life that makes you feel lonely, makes you feel stuck, or makes you feel a little lost in this journey, especially through this cancer journey, whether you're a caregiver or going through it yourself or a survivor. Wherever you are, there's a lot of times these labels that we're given, and we put this into our whole self. So our body, our mind, they take it in as reality sense. And this is really when the, I would say, like the error code, and that's why it's in red, it doesn't really fit. I mean, it feels like it does. And so therefore we keep trying to fit other pieces that go along with for example, illness or disease. And so therefore we put ourselves in that box. But really in the life sense, life is trying to give us life back and not take it away. So this is where the loneliness, stuckness, and loss can start to creep in. And so we'll dive into how we can bring in tools and resources to help ourselves get out of that. And feel free if you have comments or questions to put them in the chat. And so this is kind of going back to the identity level. We went over this similarly last time. So bringing a lens to how our minds speak, but also how our body. So just becoming curious more, like what is your well-being and human being story here? What is the identity level of the I am statement? What are some of the beliefs that tie through that identity and validate the identity? What can be some thoughts that, you know, we have 60,000 thoughts in a day. Those 60,000 thoughts are just really helping helping the belief to validate itself and constantly become this sense of identity. Then we have these feelings of energetic emotions that come through. And so that goes more into maybe body at this point. But again, our thoughts and our beliefs and our identity, they live in our body very much the same as they live in our minds. And so therefore they become into actions, which causes certain behaviors or choices that we have, and then turning them into a physical experience. So as you can see, my example, being a survivor, it was very much that at some point that I am statement will turn into a reality of an outcome of certain diagnosis. So just being extra aware of how we use the I statement and the I am or I have can really already start to reshape our reality in this 3D world that we live in. So again, taking kind of a little bit of a backtrack back to how our minds think, but this again really relates to our body connection as well. So again, you can reference their worksheet because you'll be kind of thinking about your own Thrivership journey as well, as we're either going through this or afterwards if you'd like to reflect. So as you can see, even just through the pictures, the Thrivership journey looks way different. In this, I see a girl who has more compassion and love and has more hope in the world. And even though that there was certain diagnoses or identities that I was still working on in a self-development process, I was able to still start to see the light on the other side. So again, looking at like my timeline, it didn't just start yesterday, my Thrivership journey. It was with me, but I didn't really pay attention to it. I didn't see what are certain things that I am thriving in life and how can I detach myself from an identity of surviving and tap into some identity that is more of a thriving journey. And again, life is trying to give us life. And if we can see through, nature, we see that all the time where a plant might be growing through the cracks of the sidewalk and wondering how did that come out. That's because, at the end of the day, our life on this earth is providing all the resources possible for us to continue to live. So going to now a puzzle piece that does fit. So here, talking about compassion, gratitude, and freedom, how do we achieve that? And how do we embody a compassionate, grateful, free, blissful state of being? Again, it goes back to the identity level of what are we telling ourselves? How are we speaking through our minds? How is our body showing up? Whether we have, for example, reactions and there are certain outcomes of that. And one of the biggest ones I hear is like anxiety. So if you like, oh, I have anxiety. So your anxiety lives inside your body and it's really reacting every time you're saying that so that it can validate that sensation. So here, using words, for example, for my instance, like I am at ease, I am a thriver, I'm no longer the survivor, I'm a thriver, I'm well and I don't have an illness, I'm working towards wellness. These are all words that I started to put together once I realized that it takes compassion, gratitude, and freedom to be able to reshape and rewrite that narrative. And so again, reflecting on your story and seeing how those words really do take a impact in our lives. So again, reflecting back on this chain of events. So who's the human being inside of you that is feeling more true? What can you possibly get curious about of who are you as an identity, and seeing how that can lead to a certain outcome that you'd like. So some people might work from back from the identity level into the outcome that they like. So what do they want in life? What are they doing? So the wellness is like the doing of it. So paying attention to maybe like working out or going out more out in nature. That's the doing part. But what is that on a being level? Who do you have to be in order to do these activities, the outcome that you want? So maybe you can start from the surface where it's what you want to do, or where you're trying to head towards. Maybe you have a goal in mind, so you can start from the outcome and work your way backwards and see what certain actions, feelings, thoughts, beliefs, and identity will be able to shape that outcome for you. So again, my example was I wanted to feel well again. So what does that indicate for me? I need more of a healthy lifestyle. I want to feel more joy, because that's the person that is feeling well will feel more joy. The person I'm becoming, it has thoughts like I get to do this, not I have to or I'm obligated to. She also believes that she's worthy enough to achieve wellness, and therefore my identity became the creator of my life instead of becoming the survivor of my life. Let me know if this is resonating or landing for you by just maybe putting in the chat what perhaps maybe is your survivorship journey towards healing been like, and then maybe diving into your current thrivership journey as we are starting to scratch the surface before we dive into the body part of it. I'd like to see maybe in the chat if anyone wants to share or come online.
So feel free to type any comments into the chat, or you can also unmute yourself as well if you would like to share.
You guys to take this beyond this workshop and also keep reflecting on your thrivership journey and how that seems to maybe be starting to show you some other possibilities in life. And yeah, so we'll move on. Thank you. Okay, so of course there's different trails, and we talked about this last time, and we're gonna come back to this every single time. There's not only one path to a thrivership journey, right? There's different ways that we can start to implement thriving, and it might seem at first like impossible to do so. When I was on my thrivership journey, I could not even think of one thing that I'm thriving in life. But again, when you take the lens of a survivor off and you put a new lens on, you might actually surprise yourself to see what you might be missing that you haven't seen before. So again, just switch those lens for a moment and see, depending on what trail you're on currently in your holistic healing journey, how can that be leading to your thrivership and thriving in life, essentially. And so coming to now where we were and where we're landing today. So we were focusing more last time on the mind body piece of it. So thinking of our mental well-being as a neurological navigation system. So our minds are very intellect, and they have lots of intelligence to provide more from an analytical perspective. And when we move and shift our focus into the body, we start to look through a lens of experiential perspective. And we'll talk a little bit more what that means. But long story short, if the thought is for the mind, the experience is for the body. So in the end of the day, what we experience, how we internalize an external experience, it lives in a somatic, a deep somatic state. And so the same way, if we think something, then it lives deep within our neurological state. So bringing a more holistic lens to what is happening in totality of our system can help us navigate a little bit better through our day-to-day. So looking at your body as perhaps you've heard like a temple or your vehicle, like what is happening not only to the outside of this, let's say, vehicle, the scratches or the scars or the physical sensation, but like really deepening that layer of maybe the engine or the wheels, the perhaps the cushions inside. Like, how comfortable is this vehicle that you live in, this body, this temple that you have, from a physical perspective, and always bringing in also the mind. So that's why it's body mind. We are reconnecting with the mind. There are pathways that we neurologically are starting to create when the body starts to have a voice of itself. So again, a lot of this modern world gives a lot of emphasis to what does the mind say, how does the mind show up, because we're constantly trying to work through the mind, and that's how our mind gets us from point A to point B. But so does our body. Without the body, we will not be able to move into that direction. So there is a directional, and then there's like the actual thing that gets us there, and that's the body. So we're going to be focusing on that today. Okay, so again, coming to this pillar of thrivership, there's so much that goes into our well-being, and there can be many more of these that maybe you have seen be helpful in your life, but this is just some of what we'll see in the pillars of thrivership every single time we revisit it. So there's always this this bucket where I think it's number one, right? Like, what's the meaning? What's the purpose? Why are we here? Where are we growing? Why are we growing? And what are we growing into? So how are we giving love into that bucket? What are we pouring into that bucket? So again, the worksheets, you can have a reflection time where you can see what is the meaning or the purpose or the sense of growth in your life, and how are you feeding into that? Of course, we always want to come back to a physical fitness or mental fitness. So again, what are we doing to move our bodies, to regenerate energy inside of us mentally? What are we doing to move energy? And also restoration is also moving energy when we're resting, or when we're letting our bodies just sink at the end of the day, or whether you're in yoga, like you go into shavasana, that's like almost like you bake a cake, but you don't really put it in the oven. So therefore the cake just stands on the stove. And that's something that my yogi would always say: if we don't come into shavasana, if we don't rest at the end of the day, then what's the point of doing all the things that we do mentally or physically? So an emphasis on restoration, because I feel like that's one that is neglected a lot of the times. And then moving into a third bucket that is one of my personal favorites is the nurture. How do we give ourselves that nurturing sensation the same way like a mother's love, or you have a pet and you nurture that pet? How are we nurturing our body, and what is the nature of our body? Like understanding how is it in relation to nature. Maybe you connect with nature to know that more. Maybe you go into a body of water, because our bodies are made up of 60 to 70% of majority water, and we come from the womb of water. So maybe it's something that like simple as that, where you go inside a body of water, or maybe you're constantly just reflecting on how nature is giving you life. And then of course the nourishment, whether this is like eating or drinking properly, but again, like how are we nourishing ourselves through a state of gratitude, specifically, and not really too much paying attention to what it is we're eating, but like how it is we're eating. So the nourishment is important in that sense. And then moving into the last bucket, of course, that's what we're doing now. That's one thing you can list on your bucket is community. You show up to something like today where you are in an interactive community support group that that can move you forward, and you're able to lean on if there's times of difficulty. So this is for sustainability and being able to network and have that in your pocket, in your back pocket when you're needing it at times. So all of that leads to really this holistic embodiment of body, mind, self, which again, it's not only about one, it's about embodying all of them together. We're now gonna move into, I think I'm missing one slide. Okay, we're just gonna start to like go into a drop-in. So anyways, don't need to have the slide, it's okay. I don't know if you want to pause the video. Actually, it's gonna share. Let's go ahead and have a soft gaze and close your eyes. We're going to experience how it is to get inside the soma and the body. So you have an idea of what we're talking about when we dive in. So as you're softening the gaze, maybe the gaze goes onto the floor. See if you can come into contact with your sit bones and allow yourself to sink in a little bit deeper. If you're laying down, see if you can sink deeper through the crown of the head all the way down, creating a line of energy into the feet, planting and grounding into the floor. And as you find yourself settling in, come into contact with the breath. Notice how the breath is showing up. Notice if there's a softness or a heaviness to the breath. I'm not trying to change anything here, just coming into contact. Allow yourself to take an inhale through the nose and out through the mouth gently, like you're blowing out a candle. Take 2 more rounds of soft, deepened breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And start to shift your awareness into the body. See how the body is settling into the space. Feel into the sensation of anything that's arising. Maybe something tickles or aches. Perhaps there's a small pinch. Just noticing what arises in the physical sense of the body. Then deepening your awareness now to the senses and coming into contact with just naming 5 things that you are hearing coming through your ears. Perhaps it's the sound of my voice, the first layer, and see if you can deepen the awareness to 4 other things that you might be hearing in your surrounding. Now shifting your awareness to behind the mind's eye, listing 4 different things that you might see behind the mind's eye. coming maybe into contact with your third eye between the eyebrows, shifting the gaze inwards, and allowing yourself to just see what internally is present. Exiting any meaning behind what you see and just allowing for what is to present itself. Slowly start to shift your focus now to 3 things that you can come into contact and feel through the sense of touch. Beyond the hands, our body has a sensation to touch through our feet, legs, back body, front body, back of the head, through our temples. Naming just 3 things your body can touch. And slowly shifting your focus to 2 things that you can smell. Taking a deep breath here can really help you identify maybe a word, how the air might smell. Maybe you haven't thought about this before. Maybe you have. Coming to the senses of our smell through the nose, perhaps even through the mouth. Now, slowly, maybe your awareness has already shifted to one thing that you can taste in your mouth as you've inhaled and exhaled. This time, pick the inhalation through the nose, and as you exhale, keep the mouth closed and exhale into the mouth, contracting the throat. And perhaps you might smell something that you ate or drank earlier. Perhaps you just can taste the saliva that's in your mouth. Now that you've come into contact with the 5 senses that experience the world, tap into your emotional body and see if there's any emotions that arise at this moment that's deeper within you, perhaps lives around the heart center. And now, having contact with that emotion can welcome our intellect mind into the circle to allow you to come into contact with what this emotion might mean. And imagine taking that emotion with its meaning, taking it above and beyond your body through your bliss state, the aura that surrounds the body with divinity, life, force, power, and releasing it by inhaling through the nose, sighing out through the mouth. Starting to bring some consciousness into the body again. Wiggle your fingers, your toes, waking up the neck by rolling through your shoulders, some head circles, and orient yourself back into the room before you catch your eyes on the screen. Wonderful. So here we just tapped into the different layers of our body. And in that sense, recognizing that just the physical formation of our body is not the only body that exists. Being able to be open to a deeper sensation of our essence through these five senses can really help us ground ourselves to the present moment, which is the only moment that the body knows to be true. So again, our analytical mind is the one that typically shows up at the driver's seat. And today I welcome the body, the deeper sense of body that we just tapped into, to hop onto the driver's seat, even if it's its first time learning how to drive. Beautiful. So it's just a visualization of the layers of bodies. In yoga, we call it koshas. Again, so a yogic philosophical representation of the multi-dimensional nature of a human being. So now, as you might notice, we are going into more of the power state of what our body mind means, and trying to help ourselves navigate through the system of turning our pain into power. So the next part we're diving into. So the first topic we're going to talk about is this sense of forgiveness. Forgiveness lives in a deeper, a very, very deep level of empathy and compassion within our soma, our body. And maybe you have experienced this before, but really understanding what forgiveness means to you, maybe you reflect and ask yourself that very question: how does forgiveness show up in my life? And what does it mean to forgive oneself, others, the world, society? If you have a piece of paper, you want to just reflect and jot some notes down, or you're just reflecting by closing your eyes and shutting away from the world for a moment, and see if there's any shame or blame, guilt living inside of you, a part of you that perhaps feels this emotion that could receive some sense of forgiveness. I'll give you an example of mine with getting sick on a cyclical pattern for 2 decades of my life. I ended up going to therapy for a lot of it, which then really brought some things to the surface that I was not ready for. So there was so much shame and blame behind the sickness that was arising over and over again in my body, in different formations, and wanting to kind of put the blame on something or someone else. And after some time, I realized that that is also shifting now into shaming and blaming myself for perhaps making maybe myself sick, or maybe I could have done something better to avoid these sicknesses. And it didn't get resolved through any therapy or modalities of medical interventions or medications. It really was the pill of forgiveness that I needed to swallow at the end of the day. And it started with forgiving myself, and then it started to widen into other areas of my life of forgiving the loved ones, or expanding into the world and society as well. So forgiveness is a very powerful one here, and that's why I'm hoping that you allow yourself to explore the inner sense of self, the inner child inside of you, and see what it is that you need. So one example of maybe taking this into your daily practice or monthly ritual is writing a letter to yourself of all the love and compassion that you have, and seeing if you can bring that empathetic self out to write this letter. And maybe you date it so that you can look back on it one day and just write from a higher knowing of who you are beyond the day-to-day things that you do. Something deeper within you that is yearning for that sense of forgiveness. Okay. Next one we want to talk about is the topic on sensual emotions. So sensual meaning the five senses that we take in, and then the emotion that ties into the receptive signals from the external to the internal. So emotions are energy in motion. So it's just information that we take in, and we have almost like a database of these in our heads, and they are created through memory. So when we create emotions, from ages 1 through 7 in our development ages, we are downloading what's happening externally, and we are projecting it internally to our sense of being, who we are, what are we doing here in this world. And so as that little kid that we were talking about earlier, that inner child that maybe is looking and yearning for a sense of forgiveness, the emotions that come up, allow them to show up and give you information, because that is essentially that energy that's just moving through you. And if we could suppress it and compress it into our body, it'll show up in other formations. So again, an example is I have now realized the emotions. I'm very emotional. I'm Cancer. Born in July. I now know I held a lot of emotions internally, and that had manifested into something more physical, and perhaps even maybe a mass of some sort that was pushing out through the body, because I wasn't paying attention of those emotions that were arising and just suppressing and compressing those emotions deep down. And so allow them to rise, whether emotions can come through laughter, it can come through sadness, tears, it can come through anger. Anger is a very powerful one that comes up. So again, there might be a part of you inside that's talking, and you might not be listening to. So allow the emotion to be the communication signal between you and that part. Another great exercise to do, maybe if there is some some emotion coming that you maybe feel shameful or guilt around, write that letter and then move into maybe doing a somatic exercise. So whether it's like shaking the emotion out or you're screaming inside of a pillow, that emotion actually needs to release and convert into somewhere, come out of your body and convert into something else. So give it to something beyond you. So if it's a pillow, give it to the pillow. If it's a wall, push against the wall. If you need a hug, go give a hug, get a hug from someone. So these are all ways that we can express our emotions so that we can give that energy an external formation and not just hold it inside. Again, the body has a specific language that it speaks through, and emotions is just one of them. So allow it to speak and be vocal. And then the last point on that I wanted to mention is the point where we're talking about nature. So reconnection with elements is very powerful here. So I don't know if you are aware of all the 5 elements of fire, air, water, ether, and forgetting the last one. I think it's space. The fact that we can get into contact with elements can really bring in a more of a sensual emotional journey so that we can connect again a little bit deeper. So maybe you light a candle and you look at a fire and you just allow that fire to speak to you from a elemental perspective, because that element has also a being and it's alive. And so maybe connecting with something deeper in a nature sense can help, or maybe going into water and kind of having that connection to water can help you as well. Gardening is a very powerful one that many people probably already do. If you have a garden, I don't, unfortunately, but coming into contact with plants is always helpful to reconnect with your senses, and then also deepening that connection with nature through the elements of life. Okay, so third topic, talking about how we can connect more into our body mind. So this aspect of letting go. So what does that mean? In the end, I don't know how familiar you are with shadow work, but shadow work is essentially parts of us that we've neglected, and we've now, talking about the second layer of body mind of sensual emotions, we've now deepened our connection, hopefully at this point, with our emotions and with those sensations that we receive from the external world, and internalize that experience. How does now letting go fit into this shadow work is that the shadows start to show up. So we have maybe a shadow that we put aside long time ago, maybe years and years ago, because we couldn't get to it. We were surviving or beating cancer, or maybe we had a death in the family, or a loved one got sick. There's these shadows around us that we have neglected and haven't come back to and reconnected. So these are moments that once you start to do this process, you'll realize that this is just a trickle effect, and naturally we go into this process of letting go, and not holding on so tight to something that was in the past and no longer exists here in the present, but allowing it to also have space. So again, another practice that is very helpful is lighting a candle, but this time with maybe a burning ceremony to go along with it. So maybe you write down on a piece of paper all the things that you want to be letting go of and no longer want to hold on to. This is very, very powerful. You burn in a very safely manner, maybe in a bucket of some sort, your paper that you have written all the things that you're holding on to and you no longer need, because it doesn't serve your present moment anymore. And you let that go and you burn it in a candle burning ceremony for yourself. This again can be very powerful work to do, and it takes time to get to that place, but step by step you will get there. Another way, again, I always invite shaking and humming. The vibration that happens inside of our body through our nervous system, it activates a nerve called the vagus nerve, and that vagus nerve runs from top to bottom, from the I think it's the left ear, all the way down to the bottom of our body, along through the spine. And this energy that is vibrating inside of our body, that's again why a lot of people like to sing either in the shower or in the car. We are activating this vagus nerve to show up, light up, and help us come back to a sense of home and a sense of belongingness that is more central, neutral. This is in terms of nervous system called our ventral state. So we're in a window of tolerance. We are not swinging back and forth from fight or flight to freeze to shut down. We're in this very safe bubble that we can hone in for ourselves. So humming is very powerful. In the practice of yoga, there's also the word Om, which is to do with all consciousness and divinity. So chanting is also another powerful one, and I'll invite one that is always available, which is Om, and you pronounce it A-U-M. And if you come to a somatics class, we might be doing one of those here and there. Okay, and then the last topic talking about is this state of acceptance. So accepting what is now and allowing what you've already now tapped into, the state of forgiveness, the state of essential emotions, and letting go. We now accept what is currently available through this practice that we've been implementing and connecting with our body mind. So what that might entail might be coming into maybe more of a deepening of your knowledge around this topic of non-polarity, non-linearity, and non-duality. And what I mean by that is that nothing in life is linear, as we know. There's not just, I go from this point to that point. There's a lot of zigzags and obstacles along the way. The polarity of, black and white, there's so much gray in between. And of course, the duality, we are constantly fighting with this dual mindset, and knowing that is of the world, and accepting the fact that this is the world that we live in. We live in a non-polar, non-linear, and non-duality type of life, and accepting that can start to hone in on a sense of feeling like you're coming back home. And so inviting, a question maybe today: what does home feel like for you? It could be joy, happiness, bliss, again, compassion, freedom, non-judgment. All of these can be a sense of home, and allowing ourselves to have that throughout the journey can bring us back to our body-mind connection. That is the end of this workshop. I hope you all got something from today. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to me. And I am around for some application processing. Right now, we'll be going through body, mind, and somatics yoga, so we can deepen our understanding around that connection. And hopefully, next year we can expand more on this. But this is the second part to the 3-part series. So the next part will be next month.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ghazal. If there's any questions, feel free to put them into the chat. So the part 3 is in November, and it's going to be on Tuesday, November 4th at 4 p.m. So please do go to our website calendar if you're interested in joining. The topic is, lastly, cultivating introduction of this last step to recycle our pain is through the transformation of our purpose to peace by our birthright of love. The goal is to put all the pieces together in this last workshop to embrace to compassionately thrive through the empowering self. And I believe Ghazal also mentioned that she also provides hybrid somatic yoga. The next class for her is going to be on Wednesday, October 22nd at 11 a.m. We hope to see you in person at our office, but if not, the online Zoom, you can join us via Zoom as well. You can register on our website. If there are any questions, please feel free to put it into the chat. And I will also, I want to thank you again, Ghazal, for your time and for sharing all this really important information for us to think about and reflect on. And absolutely. You said that you're going to doing some other work. You were going to be.
Sorry, what was that?
You said you were going to be doing some kind of practice after this, or was this the conclusion?
Then join the next few classes.
Got it.
Somatics yoga.
Okay, okay. So the practice that we did in the middle, if you want to further that, please join the somatics yoga classes. There you go.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ghazal. Janie.
Have a great day.
Thank
Janie,
you.